Now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome everyone. We're going to be starting our webinar very, very shortly. We're just going to wait one more minute for a few more people to come online. Welcome, as I said. Today's webinar presentation is called the Parental Leave Guide. My name is Karen Miller and I'll be your webinar facilitator for today's presentation, and I'm from CCIQ. Joining me today is our guest speaker and presenter, Damian Santo. And Damian is a Senior Employer Assistance Advisor with CCIQ's Employer Assistance Services team. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Damian. Damian has over 8 years' experience in providing HR advice, support and coaching to SMEs, and is a wealth of knowledge following his work across several industries and also with a wide variety of businesses such as Woolworths, Queensland Health and Metro Trains Melbourne. So before we kick off, we just have a couple of housekeeping things to go through. We're going to be online today for approximately 45 minutes. At the end of the presentation, Damian will be answering questions. However, I would love to encourage everyone to ask questions through the chat function. So if there's something that you're absolutely dying to ask Damian to answer personally for you, just pop that through in the chat function where the questions are to let us know. Now, if there are any technical difficulties, we will certainly notify everyone and we will seek to resolve those as soon as possible. So do stay on the line. Following the end of today's presentation, everyone who registered as a participant will receive an email copy of this webinar with the slides as well as the recording. And this will all go out to your inboxes tomorrow afternoon, so be sure to check. I'm now going to be handing you over to our presenter, Damian Santo.
Thank you very much, Karen, and welcome everybody to the webinar on the Parental Leave Guide. So, guys, there's a lot of information here today, and hopefully with a lot of you logging in, there's obviously some interest in the topic. So if you've got, obviously, as Karen said, got any questions, ask them along the way or at the end. That's entirely up to you. And some of it might be a little bit technical or a little bit in depth, but just bear with us, and I'll try and explain it as we're going along. So I'll get straight into it, and the areas that we're going to cover today are parental leave details, keeping records and knowing what the basics are, the entitlements, and we'll look at the full range of entitlements there, and what employees on parental leave are entitled to, and what we need to do for those employees that are on parental leave. Now, the details of a parental leave guide are that employees can get parental leave when a child is born or adopted, and parental leave entitlements include mat leave, paternity leave and partner leave, adoption leave, and there's a detailed section around special maternity leave, a safe job and no safe job leave, and a right to return to the job that you left. So we'll be discussing all of those in some detail. Now, parental leave pay, employees can get parental leave pay from the Australian government, and they can also get parental leave pay from their employer. Employees who get paid parental leave are still entitled to unpaid parental leave, and eligible employees who are the primary carer of a newborn or an adopted child get up to 18 weeks leave paid at the national minimum wage. Now, these payments are first made to the employer, and it's then the employer's responsibility to pass those payments on to the employee, and they can also be paid in either conjunction with or concurrently with annual leave or long service leave, and those payments can also be taken as half pay to extend out the length of those payments. Now, parental leave pay from the Australian government doesn't change any part of the paid parental leave from your employer. You can have both as part of that parental leave scheme, and these payments don't affect or replace any unpaid parental leave. Now, there's a dad and partner pay section as well, and there's some details there around same-sex partners get 2 weeks as part of the paid national minimum wage, and these payments are made directly to the employee. Under that provision, there is some certain conditions around, obviously you can't take annual leave from your employer, and then also get the national minimum wage. So there's no double dipping there. You have to take 2 weeks leave without pay from your employer, and then you get the income from the national minimum wage. So there's a website link there to the Department of Human Services, and those details can be found at that link. If anyone's got any questions about that, certainly give us a call and we can walk you through the dad and partner pay provision. Moving on to section 2 about records. Now, what we need to look at when we're talking about records is the amount of parental leave pay that's been received from the government. So this is all tied up in your payroll systems and the documentation that goes along with that. The date that the parental leave payment was made to the employee, the period at which the payment covers, the gross amount of that payment, the net amount, so we need to identify tax, withheld, and any other withhold payments that might be, whether they be for HECS or anything else that might be there as part of a normal payroll process. And then we need to keep a statement identifying that the payment is for parental leave pay under the Australian Government Paid Parental Leave Scheme. So need to be able to identify that in the payroll system, and it needs to filter through to the pay slips. And then obviously the amount of any deductions that are made from any of those payments need to be recorded as well. Now, an employer-funded parental leave program, they can be provided under a registered agreement. So if anyone's got an enterprise agreement, an employment contract, or just as a workplace policy, and the amount of leave and payment entitlements depends on the relevant registered agreement, contract, or policy. So an employer can have any number of weeks paid parental leave that they choose. It doesn't affect the unpaid parental leave scheme that's provided for by the Australian government. So there are 2 options there, and employers have the choice to be able to put on or develop their own workplace policy around that paid parental leave scheme. Now, talking about applying for parental leave, there's a lot of information on this slide, but before an employee can take parental leave, they need to give their employer a certain amount of written notice and evidence, and if they request it, by evidence, we need a letter from a doctor saying that ex-employee is certainly pregnant from this date, and the expected due date is to be that point in the future, and the employee, for clarity and I guess for consistency, is probably best to provide that information. If an employee can't give the appropriate notice, for example, if the baby's born prematurely, then they still need to be able to take that entitlement and provide as much notice as possible. So there's sort of 2, I guess, milestone notice periods, one being 10 weeks before starting the leave. The employee needs to be able to provide that notice. Obviously, if they can't do that, they need to provide as much notice as possible. And then 4 weeks before starting the leave, there needs to be a confirmation that the leave will be taken and when that will be taken from, and the expected date of return. So that's a little bit of a summary of all that information. I'll leave you guys to read through that at a later date if you need to go through those details. Now, when we're talking about hiring a replacement employee, many employers will hire a new employee to cover someone on that parental leave time frame. And during the application process, employers should be telling employees that the job is only temporary. The employee who's taking the leave has a right to return to that job. And there might be a situation where the employer or the employee can end the parental leave earlier than is anticipated, and there will be a notice period provided to the employee sitting in the contract role, and also there's an obligation for the employee that's on mat leave to provide notice period of when they intend to return, and all of that needs to be done in writing. So there's a couple of things to consider there when hiring replacement employees to cover a mat leave role. Now, if we're going to talk about entitlements, entitlements for pregnant employees, there's a sick leave provision there. That so employees who are pregnant, they still get their ordinary sick leave entitlements. Those continue to accrue while on mat leave. And so obviously pregnancy is not considered an illness or an injury. However, if the employee has some sort of pregnancy-related illness or injury, or has to takes any sort of sick leave as part of that mat leave cover, then sick leave can be used in that manner, and the unpaid section just gets tacked on the end. So if you have a week off, you get an extra week, if people can follow that. So there's a special mat leave provision as well, where a pregnant employee who's eligible for the unpaid parental leave can take unpaid special maternity leave if there's a pregnancy-related illness, or if the pregnancy ends after 12 weeks because of a miscarriage, termination, or stillbirth. So if an employee is in that situation, there is a special mat leave provision that can be accessed as part of the maternity leave cover. If an employee takes special mat leave because of the pregnancy-related illness, the leave will end when the pregnancy or illness ends, and whichever is earlier. And if the employee takes leave because of the miscarriage, termination, or stillbirth, it can continue until the employee is fit to return to work. Now, special mat leave won't reduce the amount of unpaid parental leave that an employee can take, so it's essentially tacked on and considered as part of the whole maternity leave provision. Now, if we're talking about notice and medical certificates, an employee will need to tell their employer as soon as possible, which can be after the leave has started, that they're taking special maternity leave. The employee will also need to tell their employer how long they'd expect to be on that special maternity leave, so that under the what we've spoken about previously with the record keeping, we need to identify that there's a period of time where there's a special maternity leave cover due to that illness or injury from the previous slide. The best way to cover that is to provide it under a medical certificate. So obviously the employee then needs to go to the doctor, have a chat about the special mat leave, and then get that certified and provided to the employer. Now, if we're going to talk about safe jobs, all pregnant employees, including casuals, are entitled to move to a safe job if their current job isn't safe for them to do while they're pregnant, and this includes employees that aren't eligible for unpaid parental leave. Now, an employee who moves to a safe job still gets the same rate of pay, hours of work, and other entitlements that they received in their usual job, and the employee and the employer can agree to different working hours. Obviously, that needs to fit in with operational requirements, but also the requirements to be in a safe job, and the employee will stay in that safe job until it's safe to go back to their normal job, or until they actually give birth to the child. Now, the employee will need evidence that they can't work, that they can work but can't do their normal job, and including why their normal job isn't safe. So there might be a medical condition around maybe some lifting or sitting for too long or standing for too long or something like that that might be applicable to the job, and the medical condition for the employee may not fit with those conditions. So obviously, again, we need a medical certificate from the treating doctor to justify and provide evidence of needing to be in that situation. Now, if there's no safe job available, the employee can take no safe job leave. Now, this leave is paid if the employee is entitled to unpaid parental leave. A casual employee's pay is calculated on the average number of hours they would have worked if they were on that paid period of leave. Now, employees that aren't entitled to unpaid parental leave can take unpaid no safe job. So it's relevant to what their leave entitlements are. Now, we're coming to a section around directing employees to take parental leave. If an employee wants to work within or up to the 6 weeks before their due date, their employer can ask for a medical certificate within 7 days that states that they are able to continue to work and it's safe for that employee to do their normal role. We don't want an employee stretching out their working week a little bit too long and exposing anybody to any potential risks there. Now, moving to the section around employees that are actually on parental leave, there's rules around an employee can take unpaid parental leave for the birth or adoption of a child, and this depends on one or both parents taking leave, or both parents want to take leave at the same time or actually at different times. Now, one parent taking parental leave can take unpaid parental leave. They can take up to 12 months, or they can take 24 months if their employer agrees. So if you're on a 12-month unpaid, or if you're on parental leave for 12 months and you decide that you would like to take a second 12 months off, it's just around a negotiation with your employer about what that looks like for you as the employee, and for what that looks like for the business as well. So they may have to roll over a maternity leave contract, extend that for another 12 months, but the employee who's on the mat leave is obviously still entitled to return to that job at the end of the 24 months. Now, you can't take your 12 months off in 2 sections or 3 sections. It has to be for a continuous 12 months. It can be less than 12 months, obviously, but it can't be taken in, say, 2 stints of 6 months and returning to work in the middle. That's not how it works. Now, if the pregnant employee takes unpaid parental leave, it has to start on the birth of the child or up to the 6 weeks before the expected birth, or earlier if the employer agrees, or there's some medical condition as to why we would need to be taking parental leave prior to that 6-week period. Now, adoptive parent taking parental leave. There's a lot of P's in there. If the leave is adoption related, the parent taking leave has to start the leave period on the date of the placement of the child. So the partner taking parental leave, if the employee who isn't pregnant and is the parent taking the unpaid parental leave, the leave must start on the date of birth of the child. If the partner can start unpaid parental leave after the birth of the child, if they have responsibility for care of the child and the pregnant partner isn't actually employed. So this leave can taken within 12 months after the birth or the placement of the child in the if you're in the adoption process. Now, when an employee is on parental leave, they've got a number of entitlements, and this is an area where some businesses aren't aware that these are some of the things that we need to have a look at. So keeping in touch days is something that most people aren't aware of, and I'll go into those in detail in a moment. But other leave entitlements during parental leave, extending that parental leave, which I spoke about a minute ago, going from 12 months to 24. Going back to work early, which is a 4-week written notice period that employees can give to their employer, advising that they intend to come back to work earlier than anticipated, and ending employment during parental leave. So from both sides, there's the provision there that you can resign while they're on parental leave, but you can also be made redundant while being on parental leave as well. And some people aren't aware of that. So keeping in touch days, they allow, obviously, the employees to still be engaged in the workforce. And an employee that's obviously been in the business for a period of time will have a social aspect to their work life, and going on parental leave, it cuts that social aspect of going to work every day and seeing the same people and lunches and coffees and that sort of thing. So the other aspect of that is obviously keeping in touch with the business and where the business is heading, directions, and new staff coming and going and all of those sorts of things. So there's a number of days that are considered keeping in touch days. They can be up to 10, and they can be used over a 12-month period. So I've summarised that whole slide in about 3 sentences. And if you want to have a look at some extra provisions around keeping in touch days, there's some information on the Fair Work website, and also Human Services, and the link's been provided there. So other things around keeping in touch days are, people might want to come and participate in a planning day, so they're aware of the strategic direction of the business, doing some ongoing training that would keep their skills up to date for when they actually return to the workplace, and obviously attending at conferences and other suggested method of keeping in touch. Now, keeping in touch days can be worked as a part day, one day at a time, a few days at a time, or you can work 2 weeks straight if you choose. Now, keeping in touch days have to be worked a certain period of time after the birth of a child or adoption of a child, and that's 42 days. It can only be earlier if your employee requests it, and if the request is made, the keeping in touch day can't be worked earlier than 14 days after the birth or an adoption of a child. 2 weeks after the birth or adoption of a child, and you've only been away for that period of time, it doesn't really seem to be a necessity to be anything shorter than that for a keeping in touch day. So as a rule of thumb, probably use the 42 days unless otherwise agreed between the employer and the employee. Now, they also get their normal wage as part of a keeping in touch day or a part day, so those keeping in touch days are actually paid. Now, there's some other entitlements during the parental leave. I've already spoken about extending the parental leave from 12 to 24 months. That's obviously on application and approval by the business. If you want to go back to work early, again, you need to provide the required written notice and an agreement from the employer. Obviously, if you've got a parental leave cover position, there's an employee there that needs to be given the required written notice as well, that you're returning to work earlier than anticipated. So there'll be some contractual things there that people need to be aware of. And as I spoke about earlier, is ending employment during parental leave. So yes, employees can resign while on parental leave, and there is a provision in the award and the National Employment Standards, depending on what award you're under, but it will normally default to National Employment Standards that you can be made redundant while being on parental leave. Some people, some businesses may or may not be aware of that. Some employees may not be aware of that. Okay, so best practice tips that we're talking about today. So talk with your employees, maintain contact while they're on parental leave. So the keeping in touch days are very important. Write everything down, keep a record of when parental leave starts and ends, and confirm those details with the employee. Advise payroll and make sure that all of that documentation that we spoke about earlier is in the payroll system and it's identified correctly. Make sure those employees are aware of their obligations about notice for taking and returning from parental leave. So I guess best practice would be that if you have got your keeping in touch days spread throughout the 12 months of mat leave, then you'd be having a conversation with them around, okay, so at this point you are intending to return to work on the 1st of July. Is that still the plan? And having an open conversation around what that looks like for the employee as well as the employer. And then obviously when recruiting for a replacement, be very clear about the parental leave cover and the fixed term nature of the role and the ability for that role to potentially end a little bit sooner, or it may also be extended depending on the certain conditions of each particular arrangement. Now, there's a lot of information on that slide as well, but the general inquiries phone number there is listed. Also, the direct number to get us in the EA services team. And if anyone's got any particular questions that they'd rather email in, our email is there as well, advice@cciq.com.au. The workers' compensation information is there as well. There's a 1300 number and the email address. And if anyone's got any particular concerns around policies and templates, we have a number of policies and procedures that are available on our website for purchase for a reasonable sum, and we can coordinate with you guys to develop those policies and procedures so that you're up to date with the current provisions under the National Employment Standards or your awards. So that's all of the details that I've got for you guys today. If there's any particular questions that you want to ask, I'm happy to field them now. Otherwise, the phone numbers are there for you to call us up and ask any other questions, or obviously you can email through at any further point.
Hi everyone, it's just me again. Thank you, Damian. We do have a couple of questions that have come through, and can I just let everyone know, if you do have a burning question, particularly about maybe an employee of yours that this topic may relate to, you can ask them privately through the question box, or you can actually email Damian direct. The email there is advice@cciq.com.au, and we will definitely endeavour to get back to you, if not today, then first thing tomorrow. So I'm just going to go and see what we have. Let's have a look. So Damian, we've had a question come through, and someone's asking, who pays for the unpaid safe job leave?
So the unpaid safe job leave, that's a leave without pay period. So there wouldn't be a payment for that. It's a period of unpaid leave.
Thanks, Damian. The next question is, if the employee hasn't been employed for more than 12 months, are they entitled to parental leave?
Basically, no. They do need to be employed for 12 months, and after that 12-month period, then they can apply for that paid parental leave scheme.
And Damian, there's no exceptions with that particular ruling?
No, that's a National Employment Standard provision, so that rules is rules with that one.
So we've got a question here about partner leave. If the partner does not meet the criteria, where does the 2 weeks come from?
So the 2 weeks is a Department of Human Services and Fair Work provision. If they don't meet the qualify as part of the partner or dad and partner pay, which is set out very clearly in the Department of Human Services website, then they wouldn't be entitled to that payment. And they would have to take like an annual leave or a sick leave period of time to cover that same period. If you were the father of a child and you didn't qualify for the partner pay, then you would have to take annual leave for any period of time that you wanted to take off as part of what would be considered a paternity leave period.
So we've got a question about the national minimum wage. Someone's actually asked us, what is the current national minimum wage?
Okay, so the current national minimum wage is, just 1 second. So the current national minimum wage is $17.70 an hour, or it's $672.70 for a 38-hour week, and that's a gross amount, so that's before tax. So any tax will be taken out from that, and obviously if you're a casual, then the $17.70 attracts a 25% casual loading on top of that. So that's the current national minimum wage. And that information is easily available on the Fair Work information line there.
Thank you, Damian. We haven't had any other questions come through, so if you're still online and you've got something really burning that you do want to ask us that we can answer live for you, by all means, please let me know through the questions box. Once again, if you're feeling a little shy and you'd rather email Damian direct with your question, again, it's advice@cciq.com.au. I'd like to thank everybody for being online today, and certainly thank our presenter, Damian Santo. And again, Damian's from our Employer Assistance Services team. Remember, if you are a CCIQ member, you have free access to ring our assistance hotline, and that's where you'll find Damian and the team available to support you with any HR or IR concerns, if you have parental leave concerns, or if you have any inquiries that you're really not sure about how to answer to your employees. Damian and the team are there. The number to call for that is 1300 135 822. Now, that's the hotline direct number. And once again, just we've got one last question that's come through, Damian. I think we've got time to answer this. I think some of them might have missed this part of the presentation, but someone's just said, can an employee legally be made redundant while they're on parental leave?
Yes, they can, just so long as the redundancy is a genuine one. And a genuine redundancy, the definition of is that you no longer need that job to be done by anyone. And that's the National Employment Standard provision that is across all of the awards. So just so long as the redundancy is a genuine one, then yes, that employee can be made redundant. But if you want to discuss that one further, I'm quite happy to do that. Call us up and we can have a chat about what is a genuine redundancy and what may not be a genuine redundancy.
Thanks, Damian. We're going to leave it there, everyone. Thank you very much again. We hope your Thursday is bright and sunny. On behalf of myself, for CCIQ and Damian, we'd like to wish you a great day and hope you enjoyed today's presentation. Thank you.